It was a cloudy afternoon in Manila when heavy raindrops began to punish the busy streets of the Philippine capital. Manny Pacquiao was driving his luxurious black car down the main avenue, returning from an important political meeting. His thoughts still navigated between strategies and proposals he had discussed moments before, while the car window slightly fogged with the temperature difference. Traffic moved slowly, as usual in that part of the city, especially on rainy days. The windshield wipers worked tirelessly, and visibility was reduced by the curtain of water falling incessantly from the grey sky. Manny adjusted the air conditioning and slightly loosened the expensive tie he was wearing, feeling the fatigue of a day full of commitments. His personal driver had fallen ill that morning, and Manny, contrary to his advisor's wishes, decided to drive alone. There was something comforting about being in control of the wheel after years of being taken everywhere. This small freedom made him feel connected again to his humble origins, before fame, before boxing titles, before politics. It was then that his eyes caught a solitary figure on the sidewalk. An elderly lady, visibly fragile, was trying to protect herself from the torrential rain under a soaked piece of cardboard. Her simple clothes were already completely wet, and she trembled while trying to balance a shopping bag in one hand and her improvised shelter in the other. For a moment, Manny saw his own grandmother in that woman, the same one who had raised him with so much sacrifice in the poorest provinces of the Philippines. Without thinking twice, he slowed down and pulled the car over to the sidewalk, ignoring the impatient honks of drivers behind him. Something inside him, stronger than any world title or political ambition, impelled him to stop. The rain intensified by the minute, transforming the streets into small urban rivers. Manny opened the car door and quickly got out, not caring about his Italian suit or his leather shoes that now sank into puddles of water. The elderly woman observed him with a mixture of surprise and distrust, pressing her bag against her thin body as if protecting her most precious possession. Manny approached her with respect, maintaining a distance that wouldn't frighten her. His eyes, the same ones that had faced the world's greatest boxing champions without fear, now conveyed only kindness and genuine concern. With simple gestures and a welcoming smile, he offered help, pointing to his car parked a few meters ahead. The lady initially hesitated, studying the face of this well-dressed man who had appeared out of nowhere. In Manila, as in any big city, distrust was a survival tool, especially for the most vulnerable. However, there was something familiar about that face, a kindness that seemed too genuine to be feigned. When thunder broke the sky and the rain turned into a downpour, the elderly woman finally accepted the offer with a timid nod. Manny gently took her shopping bag, surprising himself with its weight. How was something so heavy being carried by such fragile hands? He offered his own coat as protection against the rain and carefully led her to the vehicle. The contrast couldn't be greater. One of the most powerful men in the Philippines, a multi-world champion boxer and senator of the Republic, helping an unknown lady whose simple clothes and calloused hands told the story of a life of hard work and few privileges. Neither of them knew it, but that casual encounter would profoundly change their lives. Inside the heated car, the elderly woman finally managed to relax a little. Manny turned the heater to maximum, concerned about the health of the lady who was now trembling less but still kept her gaze down as if not wanting to bother. Her expression carried the weight of decades of struggle, but also a dignity that Manny immediately recognized. The same dignity he had seen in his mother's eyes during the years of extreme poverty in General Santos City, when he asked where he should take her. The lady explained in few words that she lived in Tondo, one of Manila's poorest neighborhoods. It was a place Manny knew well, not only because of his political functions, but because it represented the roots of inequality that he had always fought against, inside and outside the boxing rings. The elderly woman mentioned that she needed to get home soon because her sick grandson was waiting for the medicine she had just purchased with great sacrifice. The traffic was becoming increasingly congested, with the storm paralyzing several routes in the city. Manny decided to take an alternative path through secondary streets that he knew from the times when he couldn't afford transportation and traversed the city on foot. During the journey, he observed through the rearview mirror the tired face of the lady, who now cradled the medicine bag as if it were a treasure. Arriving at the Tondo neighborhood, the harsh reality of urban poverty violently contrasted with the luxurious interior of the car. Narrow alleys, precarious constructions, and the absence of basic infrastructure reminded Manny that, despite all the economic progress in the Philippines, many still lived in undignified conditions. The lady indicated the way with subtle gestures, as if apologizing for taking someone so important to such a humble place. Finally, they stopped in front of a small dwelling made of wood and zinc sheets, partially flooded by the rain that showed no signs of letting up. Manny felt a tightness in his chest, seeing the precarious conditions of that place, so familiar yet so distant from his current reality. It was at that moment that he made a decision that wasn't on his agenda for that day, but emerged from a genuine impulse of his conscience. He would not only drop the lady off at home, but would ensure that she and her grandson received the necessary help. The lady's modest dwelling revealed a life of simplicity and struggle. The weathered wooden walls showed cracks through which rainwater infiltrated, forming small puddles on the rustic cement floor. Manny immediately noticed the smell of mold mixed with the aroma of medicinal herbs, typical of traditional Philippine medicine. In a corner of the single room that served simultaneously as living room, kitchen, and bedroom, a young man of approximately 16 years was lying on a thin mattress covered by a faded sheet. The elderly woman hurried toward her grandson, her concern momentarily overshadowing the presence of the illustrious visitor. With trembling hands, she began organizing the medications she had purchased, separating pills and syrups with the care of someone performing a sacred ritual. The young man, visibly debilitated, briefly opened his eyes, his expression softening. Upon seeing his grandmother returning safely, Manny remained near the entrance, feeling simultaneously like an intruder in that intimate space and familiarly connected to that reality that was once his own. He carefully observed the environment. Old photographs stuck to the wall with adhesive tape, a small altar with images of Catholic saints, school diplomas framed in painted cardboard, symbols of pride and hope amid scarcity. It was then that his eyes fell upon something unusual. Among the few personal objects organized on an improvised shelf, there were newspaper clippings carefully preserved in transparent plastic. Moving closer discreetly, Manny recognized his own younger face in the headlines yellowed by time. They were reports of his fights, of his victories, kept as treasures by that family. The boxer's heart accelerated with the silent discovery. That lady had not recognized him at the moment of rescue, her vision impaired by age, and the stressful situation had prevented her from realizing who had actually helped her in the rain. But there was the evidence that, for that humble family, Manny Pacquiao was not just a famous name, but a symbol of hope, a son of the Philippines who had transcended poverty through hard work and determination, exactly what they sought to do in their daily struggle for survival. While the lady administered medicine to her grandson, she began to narrate her story, not knowing she was speaking to the very idol she admired. With a voice choked with emotion, she told that her name was Lina, a widow for 10 years, and that she had been raising her grandson Miguel alone since her daughter died during childbirth. Miguel suffered from a congenital heart condition that required expensive medications and regular medical monitoring, something almost impossible to maintain with the small pension she received. To supplement her income, Lina sold homemade snacks near a local school, waking up every day at 4 in the morning to prepare fresh food. Miguel, before falling ill, helped tutor younger children in the neighborhood, charging only a few pesos for mathematics and English lessons. His dream was to become a doctor to help the community where he had grown up, but his illness and financial difficulties seemed to make this goal increasingly distant. The lady showed Manny a small wooden box where she kept savings for her grandson's treatment. Each peso there represented hours of work, skipped meals, silent sacrifices that only those who have known true poverty can fully understand. At that moment, Manny saw himself reflected in that family's determination, the same determination that had taken him from rice fields to the worldwide glory of boxing rings. Lina then mentioned something that made Manny's heart tighten. That morning, she had walked to a private hospital to try to schedule a cardiological consultation for Miguel, but was informed that the cost was many times higher than they could afford. Desperate, she used almost all her savings to buy the medications that would keep her grandson stable for a few more weeks, while she sought some alternative in the overburdened public hospitals. It was during this conversation that Miguel, between bouts of coughing, finally focused his vision on the visitor. His eyes widened in recognition, and he tried to sit up, immediately restrained by his grandmother, who didn't understand his sudden agitation. The young man pointed to the wall with the clippings, and then to Manny, his pale face lighting up with a mixture of shock and admiration. Lena adjusted her broken glasses, and finally, the reality of the situation became clear. The man who had rescued her from the rain, who had humbly entered her house, was none other than Manny Pacquiao, the Philippines' greatest national pride. The recognition triggered a wave of emotions in the small room. Lena covered her mouth with trembling hands, divided between embarrassment for having received such an illustrious visitor in such humble conditions and gratitude for the act of kindness. Miguel, despite his weakness, had eyes bright with admiration. Manny, in turn, felt strangely at peace, not as a champion or politician, but as a simple Filipino helping compatriots in need. With the barrier of formality broken, Manny sat on the only available chair and talked at length with the family. He heard about the daily difficulties, about the health system that failed the poorest, about dreams interrupted by illness. Every word resonated deeply with him, not just as a legislator, but as someone who had lived through many of those same struggles. The rain outside was finally subsiding, but a storm of ideas was forming in the boxer's mind. Without fanfare or grandiose promises, Manny made some calls. His voice, normally used to speak in the Senate or respond to journalists, was now negotiating with hospital directors and foundations. They weren't favors he was asking for, but the realization of rights that should be accessible to all. In a matter of minutes, an appointment with one of Manila's best cardiologists was scheduled for the next morning, with transportation included. However, Manny knew that temporary solutions wouldn't solve structural problems. While watching Lena nervously tidying the few belongings in the house, he remembered a housing project his foundation was developing, small, dignified apartments for families in vulnerable situations. This family would be ideal for the program, not as an act of charity, but as recognition of their dignity and potential. Before leaving, Manny left his personal card and an amount that would cover medications for several months. He refused Lena's effusive thanks, explaining that his action wasn't extraordinary, but rather the minimum that one human being should do for another. What he didn't reveal at that moment was that this family's story had touched something deep in his conscience, reigniting purposes that sometimes became obscured by the lights of fame and the political game. The next morning, while Lena and Miguel were being treated at the hospital, a young man who had witnessed the rescue in the rain shared the story on social media. The account of the world champion and senator stopping his luxury car to help an unknown elderly woman quickly went viral. Journalists began to investigate, locating witnesses who confirmed the gesture. In a few hours, the story was on the main news portals in the Philippines. Manny, in his Senate office, received calls from advisors concerned about the unplanned exposure. Experienced politicians suggested that he capitalize on the moment, transforming the spontaneous act into an opportunity for public image. Proposals for exclusive interviews, photo shoots with the helped family, even ideas to use the case as an example in political speeches came from all sides. But something in Lena's gaze and Miguel's silent determination had deeply marked him, and the idea of transforming that genuine encounter into a media spectacle caused him profound discomfort. Contrary to the guidance of his communication team, Manny refused to publicly comment on the case. Instead, he used his influence to accelerate the family's inclusion in the housing program and ensure Miguel's complete treatment, all away from the spotlight. For him, the true value of that experience was not in public recognition, but in reconnecting with the essential values that had guided him since his humble childhood. Manny's silence, however, only intensified interest. Investigative journalists discovered that, after meeting Lena and Miguel, The senator had requested hearings with health and housing ministers. Internal documents revealed that he was preparing a bill to expand access to specialized cardiological treatments in the public system. Without fanfare, the boxer was transforming a casual encounter into systemic change. In the streets of Manila, the story of Manny and Lina transcended the simple act of individual kindness, becoming a symbol of something greater. In markets, schools, and churches, ordinary Filipinos shared not just the account of the rescue, but their own experiences of everyday generosity. In a country often divided by political and economic differences, the image of the world champion helping an anonymous lady in the rain became a powerful reminder of shared humanity. 6 months had passed since that rainy afternoon. In a discreet ceremony, away from the press, Manny handed the keys to a small apartment to Lina and Miguel. The new home, modest but dignified, was located near a health technical school where Miguel, now recovering after successful surgery, would begin his studies in the following semester. The program that benefited them didn't bear Manny's name but his mother's, a silent tribute to the woman who had taught him the value of compassion even in the most difficult moments. Lina, with tears in her eyes, handed Manny a small package. Inside was a handcrafted scapula, made with fabric scraps carefully sewn during nights of patient work. It was a simple gift, without commercial value, but loaded with meaning. The elderly woman explained that for years she had kept clippings about Manny's victories as inspiration for her grandson, never imagining that one day their paths would cross. The boxer's gesture had not only saved Miguel's life, but restored her faith in humanity. As they talked on the small veranda of the new home, Manny confessed something he hadn't shared with anyone. In the weeks preceding the encounter in the rain, he had been questioning his political trajectory, feeling gradually distanced from ordinary people and their real needs. Involved in abstract debates and power games, he sometimes wondered if he was really making a difference in the lives of the most vulnerable Filipinos. The encounter with Lina had been a powerful reminder of his true mission. Inspired by this experience, Manny implemented significant changes in his routine. Once a week, he dismissed security guards and advisors to walk incognito through different neighborhoods of Manila, talking directly with ordinary citizens about their challenges and hopes. These informal conversations became the basis for legislative projects more connected with real needs. His foundation also expanded programs for access to specialized healthcare for children with heart conditions, informally named by the team as Project Miguel. That afternoon, when he finally said goodbye to Lina and Miguel, Manny reflected on the strange and wonderful intertwining of destinies. A simple gesture of stopping the car in the rain had triggered a series of events that transformed not only that family's life, but also his own understanding of purpose and service. As he drove back, now under a clear sky, he thought about how many other Linas were still waiting in the rain, and how small acts of kindness could sometimes trigger the most profound revolutions. In boxing and politics, Manny had conquered many victories, but none as significant as the one he had not actively sought, the rediscovery of his own humanity.
If you like this kind of story, leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next videos.